Miss Shelley Wade, thank you so much for sitting down with me. Welcome.
Thanks for having me and for being interested in sharing my story.
Yes. You are a radio DJ here at 94.7 The Block.
Mm-hmm. We call ourselves radio personalities.
Yes.
I like to say radio host, but yeah.
Yes. Listen, you've been in radio for over 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
You have a credible resume. You went from San Diego, and you started off as being a singer. You wanted to be a singer. What made?
Yeah, well, I grew up wanting to be a Grammy Award-winning singer.
Uh-huh.
Not just
a singer. You wanted those trophies. Listen, yes. I want an Emmy one day. So you manifested. Yes, I understand it.
There's still time though.
There's still time. Yeah, radio. So there's still time. Just figure out how you in New York. You know stuff can happen. So what originally wanted you to be a singer instead of be a radio host instead of a singer?
Well, my high school was a school of communications.
Uh-huh.
And we studied radio, TV, journalism, photography, all kinds of things in high school. And when it came time for me to figure out a major in college, I didn't want to focus on music because it was more on focus on music education, than it was what I was
so the
interested
science
in.
behind it and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So I said, you know what? I'll major in what I studied in high school, and that's radio and TV.
Mm-hmm.
Still fully believing I would go on to sing. And then when I started working at my college radio station, I caught the radio bug, and I was like, you know what? I think I want to pursue this as a career.
Who or what was your inspiration to be in radio?
Just my college radio station, first of all, and then the opportunity to, I love music so much, the opportunity to just play music every day and brighten people's spirits. I think that was the thing that was the deciding factor for me, because it just makes me happy. I mean, to this day, as long as I've been in radio, when I come in, even if I'm feeling sad at first, when I come in and I'm playing music and I'm talking to listeners, it brightens my spirits. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The impact of radio is so important to culture and music as well. What's your take on how people say radio is going out of style nowadays? What's your take on that? Because radio is still important.
I was saying this to someone the other week. People have been predicting the demise of radio since TV started.
Okay.
It's like every time there's a new invention, people are like, "Oh, radio's dead. Radio's dying." It's like. We're still around.
Yeah.
A lot of other industries are not. I think for me, just speaking with our listeners all the time, I think that they identify, especially, the radio personalities and DJs, as you said, people feel like we're their friends.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you can have playlists, but playlists sometimes get boring, and you want to turn on the radio and see what this person is saying.
Yeah.
And maybe if you want to hear about the new music, or and people like the station I work on right now, we play the throwbacks, hip hop and R&B throwbacks, and people can they can create their own playlists with throwbacks, but it's fun to tune in and feel like you're a part of the club that along with all the other listeners, and talking to your friend on the radio. And it's just I think that people want to feel like they're a part of a community. And radio has always been that for people in times. For instance, I was on air here in 2001 when the 9/11 attacks happened.
Wow.
And what we were for our listeners here in the tri-state area, in New York and New Jersey and Connecticut, we were friends. Nobody wanted to turn on the radio and hear a happy song when so many people had just lost their lives.
Yeah.
And so they tuned into us to hear their friends on the radio, a sense of normalcy, a sense of comfort, a sense of community. I remember when, and that's, you can't find that everywhere.
Yeah.
That's where radio is very unique. I remember when the first responders at Ground Zero, when they would need something, our promotions team from the radio station would go to Ground Zero and find out what they needed there. And they would tell them, we need this donated, we need that donated. The dogs who were digging through the rubble for survivors or recovering bodies, those dogs, people didn't think about that. They're digging through the rubble with all of that fire. Their paws were being burned. And so they needed little mittens for the dog paws. People didn't think about that. But the first responders told our promotions team, and the promotions team in turn would come to the station and let us know what they needed. And we would get on the radio and tell everybody, and our listeners, being the wonderful, beautiful people that they are and were, they would bring the donations. Radio has that magic of community. And no matter how people try to, predict our demise over the years, we are still that constant. And so that's why radio's still around, because we're that sense of community and family.
I live in North Carolina, and I listen to our one of the hit radio stations over there called G105, and I just interviewed one of the personalities. Her name is Erica DeLong. She said, and she gave me a great advice, and I want to get your take on this advice. She said, as a radio host or a broadcaster, you are here to serve. You're not just here to, just be here just for your career. How do you take pleasure in serving, New York?
Just the example I just gave you, where you can make a difference in people's lives. That makes me feel happy. When I first started my career, like I said, it was all about the music and me getting to do fun stuff and play music and give away prizes and meet my favorite artists and celebs. It was about that. And now, the longer I've been in the business, I get it. It's about the people. I mean, because if it weren't for the listeners, why would we even be here?
Exactly.
So it's about, for me, when I wake up in the morning, when I say my prayers, I ask God to help me be of service, to help me brighten someone's day, when I'm on the radio, to use my platform for goodness. And so I do. Erica was spot on. You learn that it is the sense of being of service to people. That's the most important aspect of being on the radio. We don't have a purpose if it's not for our listeners.
It's Black Music Month, and Black music has a very, very big impact on the music industry as a whole. What do you believe? How do you believe Black music has impacted society in music in the whole, in your eyes?
I mean, there's so much. I mean, it doesn't matter what genre you're listening to. Black artists have made an impact on it, right? And this time alone, when you're talking about people like Beyonce doing country and western music, doing country music, and people are seeing that you don't just have to be one thing.
Okay.
You can be in all aspects of music, all different kinds of genres. And so I think that it's just important to recognize the impact that Black artists have made on the music industry.
What are some of the trends that you see in today's music? And I'm glad that you're here, because you play throwbacks.
We play throwbacks.
So but
many of the songs, FYI, many of the songs. This is how you know you're getting old. The songs that I played when they were new, now they're throwbacks. I'm like, wait, what?
Listen,
how did that happen?
That means you're seasoned. You're not old. You're seasoned. That is the difference.
Seasoned.
Yeah.
Like Lowry's.
No, I like my garlic powder.
Yes.
But what are the type of trends you see from the the 90s and the 80s to now that seem like is working that wasn't working before?
Oh, well, I can't really say that I see something that wasn't working then that's working now, as a matter of fact, and maybe you can attest to this. But there are a lot of great artists out now too. But I don't know, my niece and nephews, who probably around your age, they say, oh my God, I love y'all's music when you were growing up way more than I love our music. They're like, oh man, those were the days. I'm like, I think I agree with you. So I feel blessed to have grown up in the time that I grew up in, where, our music was so amazing that it's still impacting kids growing up today who are discovering it in many different ways. They are discovering it from listening to the music with their parents, they're in the car, or from video games. There are a lot of games. A lot of gamers become familiar with music, all kinds of genres, from playing the games. And so I can't say that I feel, that things are or there are things that are working now that didn't work then. But I love how people are expressing themselves. Like, for instance, everybody right now is talking about the Drake and Kendrick Lamar beef. And one thing Snoop Dogg recently said in an interview, he felt like he didn't want to take sides, first of all. He was like, I love them both, but I thank them for upping the game, because he felt like they upped the game so, the bar so high, that artists out now have to do a little more than mumble, you know? Yeah. You know, they're having to come correct with, you know, their rhymes, with their lines that they write, and the way they deliver it. And he just thanked them, and how quickly they were coming with their comebacks, their answers. I feel like that was real. That back when I started radio in the 90s, people weren't able to, you know, have rap beefs where they were coming like the next few seconds with a comeback.
Yeah.
You know, you had to wait weeks or maybe months before somebody had a comeback. Now, you know, they set the bar. Nobody wants to wait now with technology. Nobody wants to wait even a day for your comeback with beefs. So technology, you know, I would say that more than anything is the thing that has changed the game where music stands now versus when I first started in radio in the 90s.
Do you? And you actually made me think of another question. With the rap beefs, do you think those type of beefs and artists, you know, arguing with each other and beefing with each other, you think does that help the culture?
For me, it depends. I mean, listen, I'm a hip hop fan. I grew up on hip hop. I love all genres of music. When we're talking about hip hop beef, I feel like there needs to remain, although we're talking beef, some sense of decorum and I don't know. I don't like when it gets too personal, and I know that personal attacks work to some extent.
Yeah.
But when you're making allegations about someone that you really can't prove, I think we should really, you know, think twice about that. Okay. You know, I think that you should stick to, you know, and I'm not taking sides or anything. I love Drake and I love Kendrick. Yeah. But I think that you should stick to the person's skills on the microphone.
Okay, not their personal
Talking
life.
about somebody's family and such. Let's keep it moving. You know, I think that's what it should. And so to answer your question, I don't think it moves the culture forward. I don't think it benefits them if they're making personal attacks. But to Snoop Dogg's point, if you are raising the bar with the quality of rhyme you're doing, then that helps move hip hop forward. But you're making personal attacks, that doesn't do anything for me.
How do you believe radio has impacted black music?
Oh, wow. I mean, when you think about, you know, I mean, radio's impacted music, period.
Yeah.
But black music, when you think about artists like back in the day, you know, even before I was born, when you had like I don't know, let's say the Supremes and artists like that, people wouldn't have known about them if it weren't for radio, you know? And so I think the impact on black artists has been so major over the years. And it was, I would say, I don't want to say more important, but it was more imperative back in the day for artists to be heard on the radio. Yeah. Now artists don't really need radio to be successful.
Which is true. And do you think that hurts radio or helps it though? With that type of thing? Because now, before, I'm a student of radio because I want to be in radio. You know, we used to go to Wendy Williams. They used to go to Angie Martinez and to promote their music and their projects. They still do, but not to the magnitude that it was at one point.
Because social media has made. I mean, there was even a point where the only way people could get the word out about what they were doing was with a PR person. Okay. Now a person, I don't want to say they don't need PR, but they don't need it as much as they did, because all they have to do, especially if they're a super popular person, all they have to do is get on their socials. I mean, fans know now. I used to specialize in entertainment reporting and reporting the gossip and entertainment. But now fans know the gossip before I do. Right?
Yes, that's
because
so
they
true.
are following their favorite artists and they know their comings and goings, right? So you just have to, what's the word we learned so well during the thick of the pandemic? Pivot, right? So I won't say that it's good for radio, that people feel like they don't have to come to us for the new music, because of course you definitely want to be the center of attention for things like that. But it can't be that way anymore because of technology. So you have to pivot, you know? And then also, not only do you have to pivot, but you have to also remember the impact that radio has always had. And that goes back to what I was saying to you, that sense of community.
Okay.
And that's what will always remain in radio. And I feel like it's the reason radio will always be here in spite of people trying to predict our demise. So we may not be the center point when someone thinks I'm going to introduce my music, but you can't tell me there's not an artist who doesn't get excited when they hear themselves on the
radio. Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Because anybody can pull you up on streaming. Anybody can do that, but you can't hear anybody on the radio, right? So artists still to this day, they still reminisce, oh my God, I remember when I heard myself on the radio for the first time. They get giddy and excited about it because there's something special about that.
Where do you believe black music is going?
I think that, and I love the idea that people don't have to be in a box, because we're all individuals. We love all different kinds of things. Like I love music. Like I said, I grew up in hip hop and R&B. I am also a child of MTV.
Okay.
So I love pop music because of that.
Yeah.
I also love jazz music, and I love artists that, that were out and popular before I was born. I love Nat King Cole. I'm a huge Nat King Cole fan, and he passed away before I was even born, but I love him. I love the idea of expressing yourself, and people not being able to put you in a box. And I like that for artists of all, ethnicities.
Yeah.
So for black artists, I love that people are becoming more open to the idea of us expressing ourselves in all different kinds of ways. And, Beyonce, speaking of her and country music, Beyonce and I are both from Houston.
Yeah.
When you are from places like Houston, you grow up, hearing country music. People were thinking, this is crazy, she's doing country music. No, it's not. We grew up hearing it. We grew up ever since elementary school having Go Western Day in school, where we wear our cowgirl hats, and we wear our denim, and we wear our cowgirl boots and our spurs. And we grow up like that in Houston and in Texas. It was not anywhere out of the realm of possibility for Beyonce being interested in country music. My dad used to call himself the Texas dog, and he wore a cowboy hat all the time. It's not a crazy concept.
Yeah.
Only people who don't know that about Houston and Texas think that it's a crazy concept.
Okay.
Her doing country music, but we grew up in that culture. If you go to the rodeo every year, there is Black Heritage Night at the rodeo. There is Go Tejano Day at the rodeo, where people who love Mexican music and Spanish music. There are all kinds of genres. Texas is close to Louisiana, so we like Zydeco music as well. And we go to events and there are people playing Zydeco music. So, we grew up with all different kinds of genres that influence us. And so I think that, for that reason, it should be promoted that artists should be able to express, whatever kind of music they want to, express and play and sing.
Yeah. A little birdie told me, a little source told me that you are the sunshine of radio here in New York. What, with that title and with that, impact.
I don't think it's an official title.
Not an official title, but even talking to you before we got on camera, like your energy is just so welcoming. It is so genuine. Does that come from your childhood and this is your passion? Like, where does that personality come from?
I think, again, I think I stand out like a sore thumb on the airwaves of New York City, because I did grow up in Texas. You might not hear my twang, but when I'm around my family, I get real country.
Okay.
But I'm just very, I I believe in kindness. I believe in the golden rule. I believe in treating people the way you would want to be treated. And the older I get, the more important it is for me to express that. Again, like I said earlier, to use my platform for goodness. Because I actually have a new podcast coming out this summer called The Goodness Factor with Shelley Wade. And that podcast is for that purpose, to use my platform for goodness, because we are inundated in the 24-hour news news cycle with negativity and bad news and sad news. And I'm not saying we shouldn't be informed on it, but it just weighs on you after a while. It weighs on you. So I like to shine the spotlight on good news too, because if you're confronted with all the bad news people are telling you about consistently, especially on the news, you start to think, is there any good things? Are there any good things happening? Are there any good people out there? And so I want to shine the spotlight on the fact that there are good people out here doing good things, and they should be spotlighted just as much as the negative news is. And so that's important for me. And listeners call often and they say to me, thank you for brightening our spirits. Thank you for being so positive. I love to hear you laugh. I love it. And so it's not something that I go, I'm gonna come on the radio and I'm gonna be the sunshine. It just comes across because it's who I am.
Got you. You mentioned podcasts. Radio and podcasts, totally different entities, but they're kind of the same, and people get them confused. Can you talk about the impact of how podcast is now compared to where it first started, and how radio is kind of like podcast is now like the new radio?
Yeah, and again, someone said that to me. Actually, I was reading a post, a popular podcaster in Houston. Someone had done an interview with him for one of the newspapers there, and I think the headline was something like, I don't know if it was like "Podcast Kill the Radio Star" or something like that. Like, here we go again.
Exactly.
Just not working.
Yeah.
I think podcasts are popular.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say they're killing radio.
No, it's not.
We are both in the audio industry. Yeah. We're in the business of audio. And so it's natural for someone like me to do a podcast because I'm used to hosting anyway. But it's a different way to express yourself. And I love, again, how technology has made it such that anyone who wants to do a podcast can do it.
Exactly.
You don't have to wait. I mean, there was a time when, when I was starting my radio career, you just had to get hired by somebody. You couldn't just go, oh, you know what? I'm just gonna, I mean, I guess a few people could, depending on, if they were doing ham radio or something like that. But podcasting has made it so that if people just want to express themselves, they can. They just have to have the right equipment.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't have to buy it. They can, pay for rental space at a podcasting equipment, studio.
Yeah.
But I think it levels the playing ground because a lot of the times people like to be gatekeepers and keep people out. And I love how technology is making it so anyone can express themselves. They can have a podcast, and you've got the platforms. I absolutely love that.
I love it too. I totally concur. When it comes to Black artists and how they impact the music, what artist comes to mind that had the most impact? I know you're a Prince fan.
Yeah, Prince is my favorite artist of all time.
Yeah. Do you think, Prince and Michael, do you think those type of artists has impacted music, how we listen today when it comes to Black artists?
Oh my God, yes. I mean their influence alone. I mean, when you look at Michael and we look at Prince, excuse me, I feel a little nasally. I feel like I'm getting sick.
It's okay.
But when you see them, you see that they had certain influences as well that impacted them. And so in turn, Michael and Prince impacted so many people. You can see Michael alone. You can listen to certain artists like, I don't know, Neo and Chris Brown and artists like that. And a lot of the things they're doing, a lot of the ways they sound are very similar to Michael because of his influence. Even the way they dance, their performances. You listen to someone like Bruno Mars and all that funk, and you can't help but think of people like George Clinton and that influence that funk had, and a lot of the the 80s funk bands, and maybe 70s as well. And Prince, I mean, you hear people like Questlove talking about how much he loved Prince, and there's so many artists who revere those two.
Yeah.
Just to, as examples, Prince and Michael. So yes, they have heavily impacted music, and people see how Prince, when he was first starting, and he was like 19, I think, when he got his first record deal, or somewhere around there, and he was playing all of his own instruments. That was unheard of on an album. Deciding the creative direction of your album, engineering it, playing all of the instruments. The kind of control that he demanded before he even signed with a record label, that was unheard of. And artists today see that example and they go, you know what, I want to be exceptional like that. I want to be, Prince is a singular talent. Although I can look at Prince and hear Prince and see, the influence of people like Jimi Hendrix and Little Richard and people like that on him as well. I mean, you could listen to certain of Prince's albums and hear the influence of the Beatles. But he still, even though he had those influences and they came across in how he expressed himself, style-wise or creatively, musically, he still was a singular talent. There's no one like Prince. And so people today will look at him and go, I want to be excellent like that. Even when I was a kid, listening to his music and the way he affected me, it made me want to be a singer. So yes, they have major impact on artists now.
Miss Shelley Wade, thank you so much for your time today. You guys can tune in to the Shelley Wade Show, right? The Shelley Show? I'm on,
Shelley Wade Show. I'm on every day, 2 to 7 on 94.7 The Block here in New York City. But you can download the Odyssey app. That's AUDACY, and listen to it from all over the country.
From coast to coast.
From coast to coast. Yes. And also, my podcast is called The Goodness Factor with Shelley Wade. You need some, want some upliftment, some positivity. Download you can download the Odyssey app and find The Goodness Factor or wherever you get your podcast.
Gotcha. Thank you so much, Miss Shelley Wade.
Oh, can I mention my socials?
Go ahead. Yeah, follow her. The one and only Miss Shelley Wade. Instagram.
The one and only Shelley Wade. My Facebook page is All the Rage with Shelley Wade. And of course, the podcast Instagram is The Goodness Factor. And the podcast's Facebook is The Goodness Factor with Shelley Wade. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you so much for your time. I'm definitely going to be downloading that podcast and keeping in touch. Shelley Wade, everybody. Thank you so much. Clap it up for her.